ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between.
He's a South Texan poppy poet living that hashtag middle-class gay life. It's Chibi.
She's a little bit Selena, a little bit J-Lo, and a whole lot of Pisces. It's Rocky.
And this is Words and Shit,
the show where you get to know the person behind the poetry.
Brought to you by Write Art Out
and Gemini's Productions.
Hi, friend.
Hi. Oh, Raquel.
Oh, Chibi.
As we come to the end of yet another poetry slam season,
Yes.
well, at the time of this recording, Southern Fried was last week, which is funny to say that that's the end of slam season. Southern Fried used to be like the midway point between like when you decided a slam team and when nationals was, right? So like at Southern Fried, teams were normally still like practicing their poems, getting ready for nationals, but now this is it. This is all we got.
It is. Ooh, the cheese man on that.
I know. Which is kind of where I was going with this. As the season has wound down and we're thinking about the next year and whatnot, it had me thinking about, like how long we've been in the slam world game-ish, right? And thinking back on like, all the slams we've been to and all the competitions we've been to and all the people we've met and all the stories and memories we've made and forgotten,
Yes. Sometimes, yes, I want to forget. And like, how far we've come, really.
Yes. Tell me, what are some of your earliest slam memories, stories, thoughts, feelings, memorable impressions from back in the day?
Whoa. So back in the day, we're talking about maybe, oh my God, X amount of years.
X amount of
decades.
Where
I was a wee bit child. No, I think it was in college and undergrad, and I learned about like the Nuyorican poetry like scene, and I was like, let me dip my my ink, my little pen to go ahead and try spoken word. And let me tell you, I thought I was some hot shit. And this is where it was like during like early stages of YouTube too. So I was like, let me post this video up online.
Please tell me it still exists.
It does, and I will not say how or where it does. It's just like for me and for very close people to kind of like, you're having a rough day. Here's me trying to do some poetry. But I had my brother like literally with like those digital cameras recording me. And I'm like in my mom's home, like, let me tell you about poetry and let me go ahead and speak poetry. There was one that I wrote about like a Ferrari where I compared myself to a Ferrari and it was like supposed to be sexual. It was so bad. It was horrible. And I remember like, in college they'll have like these open mics / like slams, but they're not really slams. They're like just open mics. And I will never forget that the slam master from the Deaf Poetry Lounge in LA, what's his name? Okay. Well, he was there.
Back then?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
And he was there. And his name is escaping me. But he was there and I read my poem and he was like, well, that's something like next poem. No. He was so kind, did not laugh in my face. And now like looking back, I'm like, I would be laughing so hard to be like, I've come so far. But yes, how about you?
And we support you on your journey.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, we don't even have to talk about the really bad poetry I used to write thinking it was amazing at all. Because I think I first learned of slam in like 2006 in college.
Okay, about the same. Okay. Just like,
And then it just so happened that in 2007, speaking of the National Poetry Slam, it took place in Austin. It actually took place in Austin 2006 and 2007. I just didn't know about it in 2006. So it took place in Austin. And so it was like where I was going to school, and I was like, oh, I get to go to the National Poetry Slam because it's in my hometown. Yay. And I had the time of my life, and I was like, okay, I think I'm hooked. I think this is it. Yes. I have found my people and my calling. So much so that the following year, it was in Madison, Wisconsin, and I don't know how I did it.
How did you end up in Wisconsin? Okay, but go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I did it. But in the span of 2 weeks, I detoxed off heroin and raised $1,000 to go to Madison, Wisconsin, to go to attend the National Poetry Slam. So, you know, she's got skills. Not those kind, but those kind, but not not those kind.
That's amazing.
And so, like, just spent a week in Madison, surrounded by poets, and running amok in downtown Madison, and listening to amazing poetry. And they had this like competition. I forgot what they called it, but it was a slam for poets that were there that weren't on a team. And you know, she won.
Whoa.
But this was also back in the day when like we were all young, dumb, broke, and so flew there without any plans of where I was going to stay or what I was going to do once I got there. I just knew this is where I'm going, and we're going to figure it out. And actually, that was really my first true kinship with San Antonio and Puro Slam, because I forgot how I got connected to. It was Amanda. It was Amanda Flores, who I had met from driving down from Austin to San Antonio to do Puro Slam on the regular. And it was like, friend, I'm flying to Madison. I know you're there with a team. And sure enough, I think there was a solid 12 of us in one hotel room. You know, like two people in this bed, one person in between and on the edges, and somebody in the tub. I'm pretty sure I slept underneath the bathroom sink. I don't know.
Yes. We all have those stories, don't we? We always have that, like, what were we thinking? How did we were not kind to ourselves. Now we're like, we could never.
We could never.
We could
never. Where is my Egyptian cotton and my memory foam pillow? And yeah, no.
Yes,
but
I know.
It's always fun to look back and reminisce on like Slam and, you know, where we were at the time before we were so involved, when it was just a whole bunch of fun, and like those early days of road tripping, and back when you used to just like throw books in your backpack and go hit up a bunch of different open mics and see what happened. And you know, we were fortunate enough to have a conversation with one of the OGs of the slam world, at least in the late 90s and early 2000s, Derrick Brown. And we got a chance to drive down memory lane with Derrick and talk about, you know, those times and kind of hear the origin stories of what is now a quite well-known and renowned poetry press that he runs, Right Bloody. So shall we get into it?
We shall. Go ahead, friend.
Derrick C. Brown is a renowned poet, comedian, and former paratrooper. His album, A Close Shave with Heaven, earned him Paste Magazine's 2023 Album of the Year, winner of the Texas Book of the Year Award for Poetry, owner and president of the esteemed Right Bloody Publishing, hailed by Forbes and Filter Magazine as one of the nation's premier independent poetry presses. He has authored 10 poetry books and 4 children's books. Brown's impact on literature is undeniable. He's graced stages worldwide, from Glastonbury to The Tonight Show, and collaborates with comedians like Kristin Schaal, David Cross, and Eugene Mirman. Here is our conversation with Derrick C. Brown. Captain Derrick Brown, welcome to the show.
Ahoy, team. Hello.
Hello. So excited to talk to you. I heard that it's you got jokes, so I'm ready to laugh today.
Yes, I think a comedian's favorite thing is if they're like, "Hey, do a joke."
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm feeling
Like,
Yeah, no, I love doing comedy and poetry together. I also like surprising people with heaviness too. It's kind of fun.
Amazing.
it's akin to like, oh, you write poetry? Well, tell me a poem.
Yeah.
Looks like you're going to read at our wedding.
Contracted. And you pointed out, we're all in the Wild and Wacky Glasses Club today.
I would like to say stylish, very stylish.
Thick frames is where we're at. And also, for our listeners who've been tuning in this season, Derrick is coming from Los Angeles. I promise California is not taking over this podcast.
Maybe I should turn this around a little bit.
No.
That Texas a little bit.
Represent. We had San Francisco for the past few episodes, and now it's Los Angeles. So I'm here for it. Why not? West Coast.
Yes. I feel like, especially right now, we have like the West Coast Canada beef.
What's going on?
With Kendrick Lamar.
I'm from Long Beach, which is right by Compton, and my girlfriend's from Toronto, so we're feeling that beef very strongly.
House divided.
Yeah, and guess who I'm rooting for?
Amazing. Well, we'll go ahead and like talk about that probably in our speed dating area. But before we do, we always do a quick check-in to see how you're doing, especially with your house divided right now with that huge week-long beef. So how's your heart today, friend?
You know, it's tough. I'm on Team Kendrick for life, and yeah, so it's a little tough. So this is a great breather.
Mm-hmm. But we're getting through it with a little help from our friends.
Yes.
No, another day. So before we get started into the main zhuzh of our conversation, the main course, the meat and potatoes, we like to kick it off with an icebreaker to kind of wet the palate that we like call speed dating. So we're going to ask you a series of questions, 4 questions to be exact. We encourage you to answer as concisely as possible, which we know is not always possible for poets. And that's fine, because it's your answers. It's your show. So,
and I lose points if I go over time, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely not. We don't believe in that here. Okay.
Oh, great.
Don't. You get all the points.
Yes.
So first question was inspired by you. Kill, marry, or fuck. Skorts, jorts, and splorts.
Can you first explain to me what splorts are?
You'd have to do that because you gave me the word. Yes.
Kill skorts.
Okay.
Marry jorts.
Oh, okay.
And fuck splorts.
Okay. Can you talk what sports are?
Well, first of all, skorts are a lie. A walking lie.
Because of the back?
It's a trick. It's a trick. Oh, I'm wearing a skirt. It's dangerous. No, it's not. You could use that wearing tennis. So kill that first, and then marry jorts, because that is confidence, and you got to marry someone with confidence.
Yes.
And splorts is, exploding shorts, and that could be an exciting time in the sack.
It really does. Even sports itself is like very much like whoosh, you're giving a very sexy, moist experience.
They're not Velcro breakaway shorts. They explode off your body when you're feeling the heat.
Oh, amazing.
You know about splorts, you guys?
Of course.
I have splorted a time or two in my life.
Yes. Great. I want to go back again to this East Coast Toronto beef, because this past, especially this past day, I've been having BBL Drizzy on repeat. I don't know if you know, BBL. It's basically just like talking about Drake getting all the lipo and BBLs to make him look swole. So I kind of want to know, what song is giving you life, making you laugh, that you're just like, this it's on rotate. It's on repeat right now for you.
Between those two artists?
Oh no, just in general.
There is a song by Destroyer, which I think is a Canadian band. And that song is a great way that I like to start out my day. And it's kind of like not the typical song I like to listen to. It's called Kaput, Kaputt. And it just puts me in the best mood. So I've been listening to that almost every day.
There you go. Raquel is adamantly trying to start a words and shit poet playlist on Spotify.
Spotify playlist.
Well, you should have the playlist for writing, a playlist for when you're downhearted, and a playlist you're like, I need to dance a little bit in my undies.
And be careful when you're wearing sports, right? So they don't.
You better not get turned on. Or you're going to be nude. Kaput would be in the joyful category for sure.
There we go.
Amazing.
We'll get our social media intern on it right away.
Wait, did I just tell some young people about a cool new band?
I think you did. I think you definitely did. There you go, setting the trends.
All right. My next and last question, which I ask of everybody on the podcast, is what is your favorite thing to eat? Whether it's a specific food item, a food dish, or a whole food meal?
My favorite thing to eat is king crab legs. I can almost never afford them, but I love them so much. It's the kind of food you bite into and you just cry a little bit.
Wait, so do you just eat them, just like put a little bit of butter and and lime or lemon, or do you like to do the whole put them in like the bag with all the seasoning and then eat them?
Great question. I like them steamed with a little bit of Fisherman's Friend on it, not too much, and then dipped in butter.
Ooh. Okay.
That's a special treat if you're like on the road and a show went really good and you're along the coast or something, like by Seattle or whatever, or San Luis Obispo has a good spot, but it's a pretty rare treat, and that's unforgettable.
Amazing.
Makes it memorable.
I think my last question for you is going to be like, what is something so mundane, so mediocre, so like, it's not even like worth the thought that just makes you laugh and giggle of like, I can't believe this exists in the world?
What is mundane and that makes me giggle? Nipples.
Okay.
I argue that nipples are actually not mundane. They are white.
I mean, they're just there every day, not helping me, staring at me. I look like E.T. with my shirt off. It's so weird.
There we go.
Here he is. Here he is. This is what my chest looks like. This is one nipple. This is another nipple. And then this is all hair. And then it shrinks. It looks exactly like E.T.
Okay, amazing. So I'm guessing your nipples are not level. They're just like regular boobs. One size is a little bigger, a little lopsided.
Well, no, he has regular eyes, but my nipples are bright blue, and my belly button glows just like his finger. It's very weird.
For the listeners of this show, he was holding up an E.T. statue.
Oh shit! I forget this is on the radio as well.
It's also on YouTube, and the video version is available on Spotify. So I'm going to advocate, if you've been listening for a number of episodes or seasons, go back and watch, because you are only getting half the story. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. That concludes our speed dating round, and let me tally up the points. You won.
Yes.
Try not to go overtime.
Congratulations. All right. So before we get into the conversation, I think this would be a fantastic point to kick us off with a poem.
Great. And language is okay?
Yes.
The show is called Words and Shit.
But the shit is asterisked out.
Oh.
So I didn't know if that meant, I didn't know if that was a signal of like, watch your mouth, dude.
No, it's the same thing with like, the social medias. We could say it, just can't write it out.
Yeah,
it's the algorithms.
For purposes, that asterisk just looks cuter than an I.
Okay, cool. This is an erotic poem from a book that I had out a couple years ago called How the Body Works the Dark, a collection of love poems and erotic poems, and this is called More. We kissed so hard I could see how you were going to die. We screwed so hot, lost and wild, the rabbits outside felt their first ever dose of Catholic shame. We kissed and hollered and moaned such a song, the parrots quit the crooning bids. Let's go home and get gross. You are a mansion dropped in a swamp. We sweat everywhere and slide off of everything solid. Your long hair, black waterfalls freezing above two clear pools. I run my fingers over your teeth looking for metal, searching for losses. I thrust way too hard through the sheets, through your oncoming ghost, past the mattress, down onto the hardwood floor. And I say, what am I doing down here? And then I say, what are all these other dudes doing down here too? Hey, oh, hey. I get back into the sack and tiny bite your collarbone, cracking the daylight. You command me to dine, two soft cinnamon-soaked pear slices pressed together, and you arch a bridge to luxuria. Plumes of exhilarated sass streak over the sheets. Tar pit eyes, your kisses thick. Comforter rapture, you exhaust me like grammar. Obscenity exciter. Snake coil rattled tongue symphony, and you song so hard all over me. In a unison torque and lava wash. Scream the roof off. The sweet vowels you holler. Ooh, I can spell again. Nipples reaching like smart kids. Your thighs muffing the world around me. Come all over my skull, squeeze like a tight migraine. I enjoy your calls for God because he should see how well we've finally learned to undo his jealousy and sadness. When I kiss into the apples of your shoulders, you feel the pleasure of all gods, leaving us alone in the garden for good. I always want the most lost version of you. I fade into a mouthful of hard light stolen from the warm buffet line of your spine. Full, so full. And now you are screaming for the sap to crack from the foot of the redwoods. And we fuck like everlasting August. And how you scream that uniquely American scream. More, more, more.
As he fades into the back.
So funny. Great. Fantastic. I think this is the first time, at least on our podcast, that we've had someone who has a whole book of just nothing but erotic poetry. Right, Javi?
Yes, maybe. Guys. Derrick, don't be shy. It's okay.
I'm coming back.
Yeah. So thank you. It was, I really do love putting a little bit of humor. I think in the very beginning, I was having a great time. And I also think about like, your opening line, like I kissed you so hard that like I knew how you could die. I definitely, we've all had those kisses where we've like really felt fireworks and butterflies, but to see how you could die, oof, that's even deeper.
See how you're going to die.
See how you're going to die.
It gives you a new power. Yeah.
And I love this so much. Just because like for me, I think it's weird if you don't laugh during sex. I think you should laugh. If you're not laughing with your partner, then you don't know them. They're a stranger, and please get them off of you. So my thing is like, we've talked about you using, you're a comedian, and you really love to to bring in the humor of just like everyday life. So is it like, I just want to know, like, how is humor and just like poetry kind of related to your work? Where's like the intersection? How easy is it to just like bring those two aspects into your writing?
You know, when I started doing poetry in the early 90s, it was almost all open mics, and sometimes there'd be one feature. And you were either a heavy political poet, or you were doing wild shit like taking off your clothes and screaming and ranting, and sometimes a show would be a wild show, and then sometimes a show would be a heavy academic show, and I'd go to all of them, and I realized that if a show was kind of boring and everyone was like, oh, well, to feel like a legit poet, I better write only this heavy stuff to be taken seriously, and write out just my traumas and stuff. And then and everyone will get up and share. So I was like, at those shows, I'm going to write and share the silliest things possible, just so I can make my friends laugh and enjoy their time there, since it was kind of boring. And then at the really wild shows, I've decided to share like heavy personal stuff. So if I then got a feature, I was like, oh, I have to figure out how to not just be like, here's my funny poem, here's my heavy poem, here's my funny poem, here's my heavy poem. To capture the human existence, I want to be a writer that like weaves it into one poem, where like you start out funny and then people are leaning in going, oh, this is funny. And then you're like, bam, here's a hammer line where you're like, you warm them up with the humor, and it's manipulative, and it's a fun thing to try and put people on their toes. They're like, wait, I'm feeling all kinds of things. And when it throws you off balance, I think it does a beautiful thing for a live performance for the audience. And so I'm trying to figure out what does this poem want? Is it a funny poem? Am I being too self-aware? Am I not being self-aware enough to know like, oh, hey, you're being heavy-handed, Derrick, and I'll figure out how much humor to add in. And some poems don't deserve any. So I love sorting that. I love writing a piece, giving it time, and then stepping back from it, going like, oh, wait a minute, you forget that you were an asshole in this story, and you tried to make yourself into a hero. That's funny. And so I'll try and load that in at the end or something like that.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point because of the fact that like you've been around the scene enough to where like you've been to many open mics, you've toured a lot, you've performed in front of audiences all over, and we can get into tour stories later. But with that idea of like, I'm curious, how prevalent is the audience in your writing process, right? Like, are you always conscious of the fact that someone is going to hear this, right? Or
great question. They're always the last step in the editing process for me, where I write because I have an idea and I'll shape it, and then I'll look and go like, oh, this isn't for the public. This will stay in this black writing journal thing I have. And then if I'm like, oh, I think this could connect with people, then it'll go in the book. But if it's like, I don't know what this is, it won't go in the book. If it's, I don't know what this is, it'll go in that black book. And then maybe I'll be like, oh, hey, I wrote about my Texas family once, and I'm writing about it now. I'm going to go look in that book. Maybe I can pull some lines out of that poem and load it in there and make it feel more complete.
No, that's
but yeah,
great.
that's kind of a fun little thing, is that once I get to that point where I realize who's it for, everything in my book is thought about like for an audience. This is understandable. It's accessible. It's not just like you had to be there, or like I'm just writing about Long Beach and this is for my Long Beach people. And if you've never been to Long Beach, you wouldn't understand. No, that I want to make everyone understand. So I try and have the accessible stuff in the books. There's also stuff I don't understand why I'm writing it. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what I'm getting at. I don't know why this emotion is coming to me right now. I don't even know what my point. I want to write about this, whether it's an earthquake or a war. And if I don't know what my point is, or if I don't feel value in it, I'll leave it in the journal.
No, and you're such a prolific writer. Raquel was like, "Is this the first time we have someone with a whole book of like love poems?" It's like maybe
erotic
poems,
and love poems, yeah, both.
And love poems. See, I don't know, but the fact is, Derrick Brown has 14 books out in the world, and you know, like I'm curious, like how much is not in those 14 books, right?
I mean, like I'll write something every week, but I'll write something good like every 3 or 4 weeks, and then it won't be done. I don't like do the final phase of editing until I have like 40 or 50 poems, maybe 60.
Oh, wow.
And then I'm like, all right, I got a batch of pretty good stuff. Time to whittle and chisel and figure out, oh no, I thought I had 60. Now I have 18 usable poems. Guess I'm not putting out a book this year, you know?
I know that when we were like researching you, I saw how many books that you had, and it is vast. And then especially when you're talking about how you started doing the open mics in the 90s, and now you've had a career of over 30 years. And then even talking about your process of like what goes into your books or not. For those this is their first time knowing you or hearing about you, you are actually the founder of a very popular, very, very popular publishing company called Right Bloody Publishing, right? Yes, I have heard that name so many times, though. A lot of people have always wanted to be published by you. So tell us, like, what was the thought process of creating your own publishing company? And then, you know, like what voices and what poems are you really trying to bring out into the world with your publishing company?
Yeah, so that's such a fun question, because I love talking about this because it started as a lie. Right Bloody started as a lie because I had the books I won't get them, but I had a book out. Well, first, you know, the goal in my scene in Southern California was, number one, you wanted to get in Next Magazine. Next Magazine was like a magazine about poetry shows and all this stuff. And you wanted a good review of your set, you know, and that was like the tops. And everyone was only stapling together chapbooks, you know, of like 10 to 12 poems. No one was getting book deals unless it was with Incommunicado Press or Manic D Press, or unless you were connected to a university. You could do University of Pittsburgh, Iowa, one of those things. Those are the only options for getting a book out if you're a poet. Go through the master's program, become a professor's assistant, become a professor, and then get your book out, which is impossible, you know, if you're broke. And then the other one was staple it together, print it, and then try and travel and sell for $5. Well, I realized that my buddy was doing a record label and he was printing books. And so I was like, can I take my chapbooks and put them together into one? And he's like, yeah, sure. That press, as many presses, including Incommunicado, folded because there was this old model, which is you sign someone to a contract, you print up 1,000 books, and you hope they sell. And you put them in your garage, and you know you've got 10 authors, you've got 10,000 books in your garage, and you're just hoping that it'll jam. Well, the thing with poetry is it'll either usually skyrocket and sell 100 copies, and then the next couple months drop down to maybe like 10 copies a month, and then the following year like a copy a month. So I was like, how could I solve that? I'm gonna tour a lot more. I'm gonna try and go to Germany and England, and if I saturate LA and Long Beach, no one's gonna come to my shows. So I'm gonna try and only do like 1 or 2 in my community a month, and then go other places. And so I'd call up places and be like, hey, can I mail you my chapbook and you book me up there in San Francisco? And they're like, who are you? And I was like, I'm a friend of a friend. And that's how it worked. You'd say like, a friend who booked me at this spot, you know them, and they're vetting for me. You can call them. And it was such a mess. So when that press I was on, which is called, I forget what it was called, but it folded. I had a tour in Germany coming up in like 2002 or 2003. And I needed like 500 copies of books because I booked like 50 shows all over the UK and Holland and stuff. And when that book folded, I asked for the rights back to it. And then I started calling book printers being like, hey, I need this printed. And one printer said, hey, are you a publisher? And I said, why? They said, well, it's going to be about $9 or $10 to print it if you're not a publisher, and it'll be about $6 to $7 to print if you are a publisher. I was like, hold please. And my buddy whipped together a website of 4 fake book covers, and he named it. So I had a tour t-shirt that said Derrick Brown, Write Bloody, and my buddy made this woodcut of a California condor. And I was like, yes, I'm the president of Write Bloody Publishing. We put out about 12 to 20 books a year, and I'm considering printing with you guys. Like, oh, great. So I signed the contract with them to do the $6 or $7 book as a publisher, even though I hadn't put out one book before. And then I printed up Born in the Year of the Butterfly Knife and took it out on the road. And then I met people like Buddy Wakefield, Andrew Gibson, Anis Mojgani, so many people that were doing what I was doing with like crappy chapbooks. And I was like, hey, guess what? I'm selling my book for $15, and I just crammed a bunch of chapbooks together, and I'm making enough money to stay in hotels. And that means my next show is really good because I'm sleeping good and I'm eating good. You guys should do this too. And so I signed them and was just trying to learn along the way. So that was 2004 when we started.
An incredible journey. And for anybody listening, you too can be a publisher.
Yeah, it's totally possible. I was so naive. I remember I called up a Borders store once. I was like, hello. When we actually had 12 titles, and I was like, hello, I would like to be in all the Borders bookstores. And they said, I'm just the manager. Why are you calling me? I was like, I don't know how to do this. And they said, you should be calling your sales rep or going through your distributor. I was like, but I don't have a distributor. How do I get into your bookstore? It's like, sign with a distributor. And the distributor's like, all right, show us 3 years of accounting progress and we'll consider signing you. That's like, what if you don't have an accountant? They're like, oh my God, wait 3 years, get an accountant, show us sales progress for 3 years. And you got to double for each year, then we'll consider it. So that's how we did it in the beginning. And I was just like, our contracts, I was hitting up poets that were working at other presses saying, can you slide me a book contract? I don't know what a real book contract looks like. So it was being naive and like just trying. And I also, no one told me what the returns and costs and the profits were. And so I would never do it today. if someone told me what the profits were per book after Amazon takes their cut, after the distributor takes their cut, it is very low. And it's like $1 for the publisher, $1 for the author on like a $16, $17 book. And I was like, wait a minute, Amazon gets $9 and I get $1. That's crazy. But that's the way the model is set up. And so I tell authors they have to hit the road. That's the way to make the money.
Yeah. As a fellow editor of an independent,
yeah.
I can attest that we don't do this for the profits. We do it because we love it. And I'm going to advocate first, don't buy your books off of Amazon. Please go directly to the publisher, their distributor, your independent bookstore, or your local library.
Yeah. And bookshop.org sources from indie bookstores. So that's like a better Amazon. But I understand some people's credit cards are connected. They just want the book real fast, so they prefer it. I totally get it. But it is a beast.
Mm-hmm.
No, but like, thank you for the history. I had no idea that it went like this deep. Again, I've heard about, Write Bloody Publishing just because whenever you have like, we'll publish your chapbook or any type of writing contest, so many poets go ahead and submit to you. But this is like deep, and you're like with the OGs of slam poetry, I think, in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Which is wild. I'm
And
like,
they all had to, sorry to interrupt.
No, you go ahead. I want more lore. Give us more lore.
Oh, no, I was just saying that we all like did all kinds of shows, like at a skate park or at a church or a youth group or a library opening or a slam. But the minute you did the slam, people would consider you a slam poet or a spoken word poet.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Buddy Wakefield has mostly spoken word poems, but he has some poems he doesn't read out loud that are like written for the page. Same with Anise. He's got a lot where he's like, oh, this doesn't really play well out loud. But the minute you do a slam, everyone's like, you're a slam poet. So we try to like weasel our ways out of that title, you know, because it's kind of like when you're in a band and you know some people who go to church and you play that church, everyone would just call you a Christian band for the rest of your life. And you're like, oh God, how are we going to shake that? We got a song about getting it on. We're going to lose all our fans. So it was really interesting that, yeah, everyone was called a slam poet in the beginning if you ever read your poems out loud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember this interview where Patricia Smith was talking about how she spoke on a panel with a bunch of other writers, you know, and this was a pretty big time panel. I forget exactly what it was, right? But it wasn't like your local community college, right? Whatever. And everyone was like, they were reading every poet's bios and whatnot. And then they're like, and joining us, slam poet Patricia. And it's like, you got, you know, like, yeah, you kind of get.
What about journalist Patricia Smith? Teacher, professor.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it's novel. Maybe it's so rare. It's kind of more fun to say. Like, if I was a professional skateboarder and a poet, people would probably just say professional skateboarder.
Yeah.
Because that's the weird one. You know, that's the unique thing, maybe. I don't know.
I think it's just like the spaces really want just the slam poetry. They're like, it's so edgy and we're edgy and therefore we're cool with the youths. So, you know, I think this is a perfect segue, you know, as we're talking about this, you know, what kind of like validating that poetry, whether whatever media or form, is still poetry. So I think this is perfect for us to hear another poem by you.
Oh, great. Well, since this is one that I often don't read out loud, but I love it so much because I love these little, I love capturing these little short moments. And I think this was a response to me and looking back at my old work. And it was me talking to myself like, hey, Derrick, don't be like, what does it mean when sorrow swallows? And I was like, you fucking invent an answer. You're the god of all of these worlds in these poems. Stop being like, what are we if we're not? And it's a much more active voice to be like, this is what sorrow means, you know? And so this was me talking to myself. This is called Liquidate the Whole Cob. I do not care about what you have overcome or the enemies that could not be bested. I do not care about the things you saw die in the receding fields. Did you think of skinning them? I do not care about your love for what you can't explain. Invent an answer. I do not care about your father's skill for tomatoes or silent retreat. Tell me how you raised yourself. I do not care what a sad salad reminds you of. I know it's always your scattered, soggy father. I do not care that flowers react to classical music. We will kill them too. I do not care why you open the urns on strangers' mantles. Ash is underwhelming. It's you at your hottest. I do not care that the humorless winter beach is your mother pushing the shore away. I know you are the shore. I do not care that you want to be better to get applause. Success is hilarious. I do not care about your hunger for $30 honey and French art pomp. Cool is boring. Cool is so boring. Walmart is art. Every diner is a gallery of blue need. I only care about the imagined serenity of doing nothing with you. You said you needed me. You said you needed me, and it felt as good as flossing after corn.
What a visual.
Oh,
I know, what a visual. Like, it really does. I love corn. It's part of my people. Our people really love maize. And it's just like, I hate when they do get it stuck into my teeth. And it's like, oh, the satisfaction of it all.
it's
Fantastic.
such a nice release to get that out of there.
Yes.
So we were talking about, kind of your prolific journey and how much work you have out in the world, how much work you've helped put out in the world and all that. I'm actually really curious. Let's rewind to the 90s. How did you get into poetry? It is not a lucrative art form.
It is a strange, I didn't want to at all. When I was in high school, I was not into art. I wanted to be a skateboarder or a fireman. And I was a conservative magician at the time in high school. And I thought I would get really good at magic. I was Derrick the Dynamic. And I would go to Las Vegas and I'd put on a big stage show that would also have a little bit of a Christian element to it, where I would do my illusions and I talk about how the devil is the master of illusion and we need to turn to the truth. And I'd put on this big show. It was a little delusional, delusional. And so I went in the Army. I needed a way to get to college. And the Iraq War was breaking out. I was very patriotic, blindly without researching anything. And when I went in, I remember being in a foxhole and they gave me a little book of Psalms, the book of Psalms and Proverbs. And when I was bored in the foxhole, I'd turn on my little red flashlight and I'd rewrite some of the Psalms to be understandable, in modern language or what I was going through. And I didn't know that those little nuggets, little ideas or things I'd write about the moon were like poetic lines. And I went to community college in 94 when I got out. My friend Eugenie was like, hey, come to this open mic. And I was like, what's that? She said, it's in Long Beach and it's at Midnight Espresso and people get on stage at this coffee shop and they share their feelings. And I go, is it a contest? Is it a talent show? And she's like, no, there's no prize. It would just, everyone gets up and shares. And I was like, why are people drinking coffee at night? What's a coffee shop? You get coffee at Denny's and McDonald's. I don't know what is. Let me check this out. This is crazy. And I was blown away. I still had buzzed hair. I had big forearms from being an artilleryman in the airborne. And I was like, well, I'll read some of the stuff that I wrote in the edge of my Bible. And everyone, it was very bad. It was terrible. It had no craft, no editing. And people were very supportive. And I was like, oh, can I hang out with you guys? What is this cool music? Oh, you're a witch. There was all kinds of trippy people. And they were so accepting of me, even though I was the uptight soldier. And it changed my life, my view on politics, my view on people. It was a great awakening for me.
Wow. We're really wow. Again, I don't think we've ever had a really deep dive into what does poetry look like in the 90s or early 2000s. It
was wild. It was punk. It was insane. People would go up and say the most insane, horrible shit about murder and I want to choke this person. And then everyone would get pancakes after as if nothing happened. It was like, oh, well, you're just sharing a poem or whatever. And then somebody I thought that line was misogynistic. Oh yeah, maybe I'll cut it. There was no internet to put anyone on blast or whatever. Next Magazine is where you put people on blast. But it was, there was a lot of mercy because everyone was like, I don't know what's offensive. I've been in my hole writing this. I didn't know how it would come out. And then only afterwards, when you had a meal after the show, would anyone go I thought the title was weak, or I thought this concept was really shitty and cruel. Oh shit. Okay. I'm going to tweak that. So it was that was your edit time was at the diner.
Oh, I kind of want to know wow, diner talks. I want to know what was the wildest thing you wrote?
That I wrote?
Yeah, that's so far in your whole career.
Well, a wild thing I wrote, I used to write super wild stuff. I used to write really silly stuff in the beginning too, like rhymey stuff. Like a plumber needs a wrench, like his butt needs a bench. I need you. Like it would just be like goofy little things. If it was a very heavy night, I put it in an old book called Wolves a Go-Go, about a strip club for wolves. And that's a lot of people were writing super just bizarre stuff. And my point wasn't like, like men or like wolves. There was no point to it. I was just like, oh, I had a cool idea about like wolves getting turned on. Okay, great. I'm going to write this thing. Wolves a Twitch a Go-Go, I think is what it was called. And it was a time where experimentation was really rewarded. And there was a fearless time, but it was also, no one was really crafting their work. No one was getting together that much in circles to say, hey, let's get together and tighten this up. The only time that started happening is when the slams got bigger and you would meet to practice a piece. And that's when someone can you make that simile a little stronger? And that changed me too, where I was like, I want my pieces to be stronger because I don't want to waste the audience's time. So it was cool that came along and was a wave, because it made people want to write a little better.
Yeah. So you are clearly a man who wears many hats in this world. A writer, an editor, a publisher, a stand-up comedian, a touring artist. You have records. I think I even have some Derrick Brown DVDs somewhere in my library. Yes, I was about to talk about A Close Shave with Heaven, the newest record by Derrick Brown. How many gallons of shaving cream went into that photo shoot?
Oh, so I'm so pumped you asked that, because give me a second. This is a fun story. So this photo is a real photo. It's not photoshopped or whatever. So there's a famous record by Herb Alpert, and it has this woman on the cover, and the photographer really loved this woman. She was like, hey, I'd love to do the shoot, but I'm pregnant, so I don't know if I can do the photo shoot for Herb Alpert's record. He's like, I don't care. You're the most beautiful woman. We're going to do it anyways. We'll figure a workaround. So his workaround was to put whipped cream, because the album's called Whipped Cream and Other Delights, to put whipped cream all over her with this dress, and then the dress would be covered in whipped cream. And so when I was writing this record and this new book, I listened to that record a lot. It's a lot of instrumentals, really cool stuff. When the story of how this photo came to be and how much whipped cream was used, I think there's a video on TikTok of it. I was doing a show at the Hotel Cafe in LA, and this woman came up to me and goes, hey, I've never been to a poetry show before, and I really hated this show. But I hated this night too, because I'm on a Tinder date, and my date was like, hey, I'm going to plan something really great. So I made us a bunch of cookies. We're going to make a bunch of cookies, and then we're going to go to a poetry show. Doesn't that sound fun? She's like, I want to fuck. What are you talking about? This is Tinder. What are you doing? Oh my God. And she didn't like it. But she liked the humor and the stuff in the book I was reading from. So she bought a book, and we became friends. And she is one of the most famous porn directors in the US. Her name's Holly Randall. And her mom was one of the first female porn directors ever, also named Susie Randall. And the record label came to me and said, hey, do you know anyone that would shoot you doing a send-up of your take on Whipped Cream and Other Delights? And I was like, yes, I know the top porn director in the US. Let's see if she'll do a sexy photo shoot of my fat ass. So she said yes. And the way it worked was, we're in a studio. I have the dress on, and you have to use shaving cream, but then a mixture of whipped cream for the top because of the way it melts. So I think we used 25 cans of shaving cream tub of Cool Whip, and then a little bit of whipped cream to see if it would, that's what's on my hand. So that's what so I'm not eating the shaving cream. So that was a whole day long shoot. And I don't know if it was worth, the record label's like, okay, this is cool. This is fun. But, is this worth the money? I was like, I don't know. I just had an idea. So they were cool to like pull it off. And she was really cool being like, I'll make time for your silly idea. And she made it really fun. And I love that we stayed in touch, because one time she's like, hey, Derrick, I'm shooting this lesbian porn and did you do magic? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, I need like a floating dildo trick. And I was like, I got just the thing for you. So I was a consultant on one of her lesbian porns. It was really cool.
Wow. What a great story. That was fantastic. Wow. Tippy, did you kind of know a little bit about that history or not at all?
Not at all.
I keep that from Chibi. I keep it from him to keep him pure.
I am always the last to know what Derrick Brown.
Oh, great. That is fantastic. I guess like, one of our second to last questions is, you again have been a great keeper, right, of just a lot of different people's poems and books that you publish out. Do you have a favorite? I know they're probably all your children, but like, do you have a favorite book that you have actually published that's not yours?
Oh, that is a fun question. And can I put them in categories?
Sure.
Yeah. Because all the book, I'm one of the editors that votes out of our group. Every year, there's 5 or 6 people who we have a voting process where every book that comes in, every submission that comes in gets a few notes about it and a score of 1 through 100. And then they have to do a part 2 where they submit the manuscript, that gets a score. And then part 3 is where they submit a video. And then we total it all up to see who would be a good fit. And I am often, I think I might get in trouble with this one because a lot of these people become my friends. I think something safe I can do is that a book that hasn't come out in a while that people might have forgotten about. My favorite book that came out a long time ago that a lot of people don't know about is a book called Birthday Girl with Possum by an author named Brendan Constantine. Mm. And that book has the perfect range of humor and lay you on the floor power and perfect craft. And he's such a cool, trippy dude. He used to live in Bela Lugosi's old house in Hollywood. And I went over there. I think I stayed there once, and it's got the vibe of like old vampire stuff, I think he had to move out of there because they turned it into condos. But that book, if anyone's like, I've got the Sarah Kay, I've got the Caroline Earlywine, what should I get? I'll go like, oh, check out this book. If you are in a place in your life where like you are delighted by surprise metaphors and similes, this will set you off. So that's a book that came out more than 10 years ago that if people like, I've got everything, what should I think I have everything. I'm like, you may not have this book. So I turn them on to that.
I love it because there is quite an extensive collection of Write Bloody books that people can get. And phenomenal authors all across, some of which are my friends. And it's weird how like I'll be like, you're really good, and then you'll do a show and then you'll become a friend. It's really lovely. But everyone I pick has to go through that rigorous thing. So the books are good and I like them and I read them. But it's interesting that like I'll ask what mood, if someone's like, I don't know, I'm missing my family. I'm like, oh, check out this Kristen O'Keefe Aptowitz. So like, I want some surrealism. I'll be like, look, this is an East Mojgani book. It depends what mood they're in, especially at like a book fair. I love that. I'll be like, where is your head at right now? And they'll be like, romance. I'm like, gotcha. Yeah, a book for everyone. Well, there's so much history that we could continue to like dive into and talk about, and we could probably be here for hours because I'm sure you've got war stories for days of tours and publishing, and we didn't even get into the stand-up comedy business, which is its own beast. But we like to conclude, at least this season, we've concluded every interview with the same question. And so the question is, as you look towards the next chapter of your life, right? If that chapter was a poem, what would be the title of that poem?
The title of that poem would be Talk to Strangers.
I like that. That's good.
It's something I used to be terrified of. And when I went on a motorcycle trip, and I wrote about it a little in this new book, it kind of forced me to do that. And it's nerve-wracking to me, and I'm trying to get better at it. But I think that's the next chapter.
Oh.
Well, I will say I'm a stranger to you, and this was fantastic to interview you and get to know you. So I think you're doing great.
Thanks. My pleasure. Great. This is so fun. I'm so glad you all are doing this and let me come on.
Yeah, for sure. We do it very selfishly. We love doing it.
Yes, we do. But we really want to say thank you. Thank you so much. This was, again, fantastic. Learned so much lore than I thought we would really kind of delve into. So thank you so much. For the people who enjoy this this episode, and for the people that you might get new audience members and new customers, right, and readers, where can they find you and your work?
I'm at brownpoetry.com, and then my press is writebloody.com, and my Instagram's at Derrick Brown Poetry, DERRICK brownpoetry.com. Oh, no .com on Instagram. That's some boomer shit right there. Like, Google onto Instagram.
Yeah, very much so. My Foursquare is
right by my LiveJournal links.
Yeah. I still get emails from LiveJournal being like, your LiveJournal buddy is having a birthday. And I'm like, my LiveJournal buddy has an updated LiveJournal.
That's wild.
I'm going to need you to walk away.
That's wild.
But yeah, the record is A Close Shave with Heaven. The new book is Love Ends in a Tandem Kayak. The poet is Derrick Brown. If you haven't checked his work and his press out, please be sure to do so. Derrick, thank you so much again.
I'm so excited to do our show on the 30th in San Antonio and to hang out and get some good food.
Yeah, actually, by the time this airs, the show will have already passed.
Oh, well, the show was great. Thank you so much.
Sold out show in San Antonio.
Woo! That one got weird. That was really cool.
All right. We'll talk soon. Thanks, Jeff.
Bye, y'all.
Hey, friend.
Hey, friend. I love taking a trip down history lane.
I really do. I'm about the lore. I don't know about you, but I love to go on YouTube and fall asleep or just have it in the background of just like random lore of different shows, of different history things. I think Derrick should also have a YouTube, just ASMR of just like poetry lore.
If you want some lore, actually, Buddy Wakefield's book, A Quiet of Honest Killer, has a lot of lore in it.
Amazing.
But it's always great to talk to someone who's been around the poetry scene for so long, because I think we forget. You know, it wasn't always so easy to find an open mic and to get in front of an open mic and to get your work out into the world. And a lot of the people that have been doing this since the 90s, at least in our realm, in our circles, that kind of like overlap of spoken word and page poetry, right? There's been a lot that has gone on to put it out there and to get it going. And one of the things that I love the most is you never know what you're going to get in a Derrick Brown show, ever.
No, not at all. Again, I know he posted afterwards, but wow, what a show y'all did together. That was so amazing. I didn't expect that. I wasn't even there. But I heard that it was wild.
You're dumb. We're not fooling anybody. We record these episodes in advance. So whatevs. Let's get out of here. Let's thank some people and get going so we can go on to the next one.
Perfect. So thank you so much for the listeners. We really can't be doing this without you. We do this out of love, really. We don't get paid. We do this, we volunteer. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to try to do, is it only because you yes.
I have no idea. I have no idea how I unlocked that feature. For the listeners, don't worry. It's not important.
No, it's just, he just like heart emojis all over it, always exploding. I'm just jealous, but thank you. Those heart emojis went out to you, listeners. They went out to you.
Our theme music is produced by queer artist, rapper extraordinaire Chris Condé. Be sure to check out their work wherever you get music.
And thank you to Write Art Out and the City of San Antonio Department of Arts and Culture, whose support has helped produce this podcast.
If you want more information about new episodes, upcoming episodes, maybe clips from past episodes, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Words and Shh.
Or you can watch and listen to past episodes on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast from.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, review. It really helps us to get the word out about this show, and so the more people can find out about the poets that we feature on it. Until next time, y'all, stay safe out there.
And stay hilarious.